Hey, what's up? I was trying to decide if I wanted to get views with another Batman video or if I wanted to finish any of the other projects I have, but then I thought, fuck it, let's just start another one and talk about Elm Street. The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise is one of my horror staples with a great blend of story and gory, and while it's not super deep, there's also opportunities to interpret deeper meanings with the nightmares and overall stories. I'm looking at you, Freddy's Revenge.
I don't care if you have to hit me over the head, just don't let me leave. And great.
By the time Dream Warriors came out, they went more into comedy, but the first Nightmare on Elm Street was true horror.
Please, God.
This is God.
We start the movie with Freddy making his iconic glove as we see the credits and hear his heavy breathing over a synth bass riff. After slashing the title of his own movie, we cut to Tina running down what looks to be a utility hallway. As Tina makes her way through the dream, we get glances at Freddy while he stalks his prey. This all comes to a point when Tina's cornered and Freddy jump scares her awake.
You okay, Tina?
Tina tells her mom that it was just a bad dream, and Tina's new stepdad comes in for some late night coochie woochie. After Tina goes back to sleep, we hear the intro from Do You Believe in God as the gang pull up to school.
9, 10, now sleep. When I woke up, it seemed like
After Nancy tells Tina that she had a bad dream too, Tina suggests a sleepover.
I had a hard-on this morning when I woke up, Tina. Had your name written all over it.
there's 4 letters in my name, Rod. How could there be room on your joint for 4 letters?
We then cut to the sleepover where a young Johnny Depp is using peak 80s technology to lie to his parents.
Right, I'll call the police. No, just some neighbors having a fight, I guess. I'm fine. I'll call you in the morning.
Tina starts to talk about the man in her dreams, and Nancy says that she's been seeing the same man.
That made me remember the dream I had last night.
What'd you dream?
I dreamed about a guy in a dirty red and green sweater.
This is interrupted when they hear scraping noises out back and Glenn goes to see what it is.
I got bitches all on my dick and every day.
Rod then makes his entrance, and Rod honestly has to be one of my favorite characters.
Oh, what's that?
Intense, huh? So what's going on here? An orgy or something?
Nancy wants to leave, but Tina asks if they're still gonna stay, so they make their way to the couch. We then cut to later in the night where Tina's getting rodded by the Rod Man himself.
I'm gay, Daddy! I'm gay! Mrs. Simpson made me gay!
Morality sucks.
Post-coitus, Rod tells Nancy that he's also been having nightmares too, but Rod's a man's man and doesn't want to talk about his feelings, so they go to sleep. Later in the night, Tina wakes up to rocks being thrown at her window. We then get one of the most iconic shots of the entire series, with Freddy stretching through the wall over Nancy while she sleeps. Tina goes out back to investigate the rock throwing, and after being lured into an alley, we get our proper introduction to Freddy.
This is God.
After chasing her back and forth for a while, Freddy jumps out from behind a tree in what is still good blue screen effects and cuts his fingers off, which is still good practical effects. This movie was made back in the 80s, and it's a real prime example of why in-camera effects and practical effects will always be better than CGI. While Tina is wrestling with Freddy, we cut back to the real world where we see the first death in the series, with Tina getting dragged across the ceiling and an absurd amount of blood sprays the room.
Tina!
Nancy and Glenn investigate the noise and they see Tina dead and Rod running away from the scene. We then cut to the police station where we meet the chief of police and Nancy's dad.
What was she doing there,
Hello to you too, Donald.
Marge?
Nancy's dad is less worried about the murder and more worried about his stepdaughter being at a mixed gender sleepover. Nancy tells her father that she was there because Tina dreamed it would happen, and we fade to the next day where we see Nancy's mom starting the day off right.
Police say the victim, 15-year-old Christina Gray, had quarreled earlier with her boyfriend Rod Lane.
As Nancy's making her way to school, she notices a weird man and then is brought to the bushes by an even weirder man. Rod tells Nancy that he didn't do it, and we get to see that this movie really does take place in the 80s when Rod isn't immediately shot in the back after running from police.
Just move away from us, son. Real easy, like your ass depended on it.
Hold it!
No!
Jesus Christ!
We then cut to Nancy in class where the teacher's going on about some dumb shit and Nancy starts to doze off. This movie's really good at making the transition from reality to dream seamless as we see Tina's body in a body bag getting dragged down the hallway. Nancy also bumps into a student wearing a suspicious sweater, and it's great at showing how Freddy can really be anything when you're in his world.
No running in the hallway.
Nancy makes her way to the boiler room and is introduced to Fred, who proceeds to chase her down a maze of pipes and valves. Freddy has Nancy cornered, but Nancy uses the steam pipe to burn herself awake before Freddy can get to her.
Come to Freddy.
On her way home from school, Nancy stops by and talks to Rod about the mysterious man. After Rod mentions the 4 cuts happening at the same time, he also talks about how he had a dream where a guy had knives for fingers, and I just have to ask, why hasn't Rod washed the blood off of his hands? I mean, it's been at least 24 hours, you gotta sink right there, come on guy. We then cut to Nancy, who's in the bath, and we get another iconic shot when Freddy reaches his hand out of the water. After Nancy's mom ruins the first time, Freddy drags Nancy under the water, but Nancy's mom was in the OC and grabs a coat hanger to pick the lock.
Hold on, baby.
Nancy then raids her mom's medicine cabinet and grabs some over-the-counter meth. We then cut to later in the night when Glenn is sneaking up the lattice on the side of the house, and I just have to ask, was this ever a thing? I mean, those lattices are meant for flowers, and this is like 120, 150 pound horny teenager. I don't think those nails are holding in. Nancy asks Glenn to stand guard while she sleeps, and we then get to see Nancy's Nightmare Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. As Nancy's making her way through the backyard, she asks if Glenn is still watching, which is great when you know the rules of the dream and you know that either that's not Glenn or Glenn is asleep. And since bringing other people into your dreams was introduced in Dream Warrior, I think it's fair to guess that that was Freddy. Nancy makes her way down the fog-covered streets to the police station where she sees Freddy going into Rod's cell and starts to call for Glenn. After getting no answers and seeing Tina again, Freddy jumps out from some bushes and the chase is on. We get to see some great melty stare effects and some not so great mask prosthetics.
Freddy.
After Nancy gets into her room, she looks in the mirror to tell herself that it's only a dream, but Freddy has a second opinion on the matter.
This is just a dream. This isn't real. This is just a dream. He isn't real. He isn't real.
Nancy is smart and knows that men ain't shit, so she gets waken up by her backup alarm. After Nancy's mom leaves the room, we cut to Nancy and Glenn at the police station asking to see Rod. While Nancy's dad is being a wet blanket, we see Rod getting wrapped up in a prison blanket and hung in his cell. Nancy and crew were too late to save Rod, so the next scene is the funeral that we never got to see for Tina, but Rod is my man, he is my boy, he is the Rod Meister, so of course the whole team pulls up. We then cut to Nancy visiting the series' second main villain, a sleep clinic. While Nancy is falling asleep, we hear her mom and the doctor giving a half-hearted, based on a true story, while talking about dreams.
What the hell are dreams, anyway?
Mysteries. Incredible body hocus pocus. The truth is, we still don't know what they are.
As Nancy has her nightmares, we don't get to see it from her perspective, which is a level of restraint this series won't have for long, and it's almost scarier hearing the machines beeping and seeing Nancy doing her thing on the bed.
What's she doing? Is she dreaming?
The doctors try to sedate her, but after resisting, they see cuts on Nancy's arm, and Nancy pulls out a hat she got from Freddy. The next morning, Nancy's talking to her mom about the hat and the man in her dreams, and like so many DS carts that have gone to sleepovers, the hat has the owner's name written on it. Nancy's mom is trying to dodge the issue, but after Nancy brings up becoming a completely well-adjusted person like her mom, Nancy's mom opens a can of whoop ass and tries to calm her down by telling her that Freddy can't get to her anymore.
Feeling better? Or maybe I should grab that bottle and veg out with you. Avoid everything happening to me by just getting good and loaded.
We then cut to Nancy and Glenn, where Glenn is telling Nancy about dream skills and how if you take away the energy of the dream, it can't hurt you.
What if they meet a monster in their dreams? Then what?
They turn their back on it, take away its energy, and it disappears.
But what happens if they don't do that?
Glenn also notices that Nancy is studying for either the lead in Home Alone or a sidekick in the Bear Grylls. When Nancy gets home, she sees that the windows have been barred and the lattice taken down, and after Nancy presses the issue, her mom brings her down to the basement and gives her a history lesson on Freddy.
You want to know who Fred Krueger was? He was a filthy child murderer who killed at least 20 kids in the neighborhood. Kids we all knew.
Since it was the 80s, I don't think they had the balls to say molest, so they stick with murder, but the way they talk about it, you can tell what they're trying to say. It wouldn't be until the 2010s where we got a remake that would confirm Freddy as a diddler. Man, those times were edgy. You remember Chris Angel? Nancy's mom talks about how the cops didn't sign a warrant right, and after Fred got let go, the parents of the kids got together and burned him alive.
He's dead, honey, because Mommy killed him. I even took his knives.
After this blast from the past, Nancy calls Glenn and tells him to wake her up so she can bring Freddy with her from the dream world to the real world, and Glenn can whack him good.
I grab the guy in my dream. You see me struggling, so you wake me up. We both come out, you whack the fucker, and we got him.
Are you crazy? Hit him with what?
We then see Glenn immediately failing his task when his mom goes into his room and tells him to go to bed even though he was already asleep. After Nancy's mom tucks Nancy into bed, she leaves the room and we see Nancy breaking out her emergency coffee pot brew ready. We then see Nancy's mom hitting the good old laundry bottle, and after Nancy calls for Glenn, Glenn's dad picks up the phone and tells Nancy off before leaving the phone off the hook. If you're not old enough to know what that means, basically Glenn's dad put the house phone on airplane mode. After Freddy scares Nancy into ripping the phone off the wall, we get another great scene where Nancy gets a call from Freddy.
This ain't my dad, this is a cell phone.
This is when Nancy realizes that Glenn is in danger and tries to get him, but Nancy's mom / Freddy won't give her the key. We then see young Johnny Depp dealing with something a little bit worse than shit in the bed. While Nancy's dad is investigating, Nancy calls him and asks him to break the door down and wake her up in 10 minutes. Like a true American, Nancy's dad offloads the work to someone else, and like a true crackhead, Nancy is setting up traps all around the house. We then get a role reversal with Nancy tucking her mom into bed before laying down to face Krueger.
And now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.
We start the final nightmare with Nancy walking down to the basement and finding a hidden door. The door leads to a beautiful open field of flowers with a nice breeze, and I just realized what movie we're watching. Of course, it's actually a maze of pipes and valves. After wandering down the halls of pipe, Nancy comes to a room where she finds Tina's cross and Glenn's headphones. After getting chased out onto her lawn, Nancy's alarm goes off and she makes a grab for the Fred man. After waking up with only the lattices, she thinks she's crazy until Fred jumps out from under the bed. Nancy has him trapped in her room and she tries to get her dad's attention, but the hired labor isn't working out too well.
Everything is gonna be alright! Everything's under control!
Yes, I'm dead, you asshole!
We then get to see Nancy luring Freddy through various traps, with the grand finale being a firebomb in the basement.
Hey!
The police go in to investigate the basement, and this is when Nancy notices a set of flaming footprints and she realizes that this isn't Miami and Freddy's after her mom. After Nancy's dad tries putting out the fire, we see Nancy's mom getting lowered through the bed and presumably to hell. Nancy tells her dad that she'll meet with him in a minute, and this is when we realize that Nancy's still in the dream.
You're there, Freddy.
You think you was gonna get away from me?
Nancy confronts Freddy and tells him that men ain't shit, and Freddy gets endgamed.
You're nothing. You're shit.
I just took a DNA test, turns out I'm 100% that bitch.
We then cut to the next day where the sun is out and Nancy's mom is in AA.
Oh, I feel like $1 million. They say you bottomed out when you can't remember the night before. No, baby, I'm gonna stop drinking. I just don't feel like it anymore.
That's a red flag.
Even Nancy's friends are back, and after she gets into the car to go to school, we get the last scare of the movie with the recognizable pattern of the sunroof and the blow-up doll, Nancy's mom, getting dragged through the door. This movie is one of my favorites, and what puts it there is the set design and dream sequences. Most TV shows and movies about dreams and nightmares go over the top with it, and later movies in this series would do just that, but this movie's dream settings are great at creating a nightmarish atmosphere. The almost liminal spaces of utility hallways and empty streets covered in a healthy layer of fog are just the backdrop, and there's also the writing and acting, which, while isn't A+ material, it's great at what it does. It almost creates the feeling of growing up and hearing all the family drama when you sit at the adult table for Thanksgiving. While I don't have Robert Englund in my dreams, I still have nightmares and I don't really like sleeping. Sleep is the cousin of death, don't you know?
I never sleep, cause sleep is the cousin of death.
Whenever I'm trying to stay up late, I like to watch movies and TV shows, and besides binge watching The Sopranos,
I'm a fool to do your dirty work. Go, yeah.
I've also been going through an 8-movie set of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and it's almost calming to see characters going through similar problems. Anyway, I've been really unmotivated recently between general life stuff and my channel getting bent over backwards, but I still plan to make videos. Make sure to check out the podcast I do with RNE King called Henny for Your Thoughts. We upload new episodes every 2 weeks. I've also been going live more on Twitch. I don't quite have a schedule set up for that, but you can probably catch me on Twitch every now and again at PimpTurkey69. You should also make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you can see my next video when it comes out. Until next time, later.